This is Kruger National Park, a place where every creature is steeped in the ruthless logic of survival. Under the searing, blinding sun of a harsh afternoon, Nala, a formidable lioness, was faced with a choice that went against all instinct. It was the day her cub, Leo, was born. Leo carried an impossible, yet dangerous, beauty. His entire body was as white as snow. He did not bear the golden hue of the savanna grass, but was a fragile, white beacon in a world where camouflage is survival. To the pride, Leo's difference was not a beauty, but a curse, a sign of weakness that would invite every danger. The pride's reaction was not confusion, but a deep, primal rejection. The dominant male, the keeper of the pride's law, refused even to look upon the anomaly. He saw only vulnerability, a clear target, a threat to the safety of the entire bloodline. For Nala, her heart was torn between two absolutes: her boundless love for her son and the cold, ancient law of the pride. She knew if she stayed, the sun and the shadows would consume Leo. The only way forward was a path she never imagined, a desperate trek toward the creature that the wild had taught her to fear most. Humanity. This is the story of how love, in its purest form, can rewrite even the most fundamental rules of life. Nala's journey was a marathon of desperation. The midday sun at Kruger beat down relentlessly, turning the sand to a furnace. Exhausted from birth and lack of sleep, every step she took violated a golden rule of the wild: never show weakness. But Nala's maternal instinct roared louder than any fear. She was not seeking food or water. She was seeking something far more precious: hope. Her destination was the outer boundary of Kruger, where the wildness began to yield to the first signs of civilization. There, nestled into a low-lying ridge, hidden behind ancient acacia trees, was Elias's rustic observation post. Elias was not a tourist or a ranger. He was a silent guardian, a veteran conservationist who had spent 30 years observing the park's wordless language. Locals called him the Old Observer, a man whose wisdom stemmed from respect, not control. He lived alone, yet was never lonely, for his soul was woven into the rhythm of the land. Nala approached Elias's rough-hewn cabin in the stark daylight, a blatant violation of her nocturnal, predatory nature. Elias was sitting, mending his old canvas satchel, when he heard a low, unfamiliar groan coming from the doorway. It was not a threatening roar, but a pained, reluctant plea. Slowly, he opened the door, and his world stopped. Standing before him was Nala, her huge body trembling not with rage, but with absolute exhaustion and grief. Carefully closing her powerful jaws, she gently laid Leo on the dusty threshold. The cub was smaller than a loaf of bread, impossibly white and terribly frail. In that moment, a single tear traced a path through the dust on Nala's cheek. It was a clear, undeniable sign of surrender and a fierce, wordless plea for help. She did not fight. She did not roar. She simply nudged her cub forward, conveying a final message. I cannot protect him, but I trust you to try. Elias, a man accustomed to the cold equations of nature, felt the weight of this impossible bargain settle on his soul. This was not a rescue. It was a sacred commission given by the wild itself. He looked directly into Nala's grief-clouded amber eyes and understood. He nodded slowly, a silent acceptance. Nala turned her back, disappearing into the sun-drenched scrub without a backward glance, leaving behind not a threat, but a symbol of love and trust. The struggle for the white cub's survival and the true meaning of connection was about to begin, and the burden was now entirely on Elias's aging shoulders. Elias's quiet little observation post was instantly transformed into a high-risk intensive care unit. The stark Kruger sun, which made Leo's beauty so pronounced, was now his greatest enemy. Elias quickly covered the windows, creating a cool, dim sanctuary to shield the cub's sensitive pink eyes, albinism's greatest challenge. The care Elias gave Leo was relentless and obsessive. Leo's tiny body struggled to digest regular milk, forcing Elias to stay up through the nights preparing a complex, specific milk formula. He had to ensure constant cabin temperature and provide the nonstop physical contact crucial for Leo's development. Elias held the cub tightly to his chest, recreating his mother's warmth and heartbeat, swaddling him in his own worn linen shirt. This was not just physical care, it was emotional scaffolding. Elias, with his rough, sun-battered hands, gently cradled the fragile creature, noting the perfect curve of his small ears, the delicate blush of pink on his paws. He knew Leo's survival was a testament to Nala's incredible display of love. Leo's progress was measured in small miracles. The first steady suckle on the bottle, the first faint contented purr, the way his bright eyes began to track Elias's shadow around the room. A profound, wordless bond had been formed, one that transcended species and fear. Elias knew his role was a bridge, not a permanent home. He was not raising a pet. He was mending a life so it could return to its destiny. Yet, a massive question hung in the air. Could months of human kindness undo years of primal instinct? Leo grew stronger, his movements becoming more deliberate, his tiny growls more confident. But with that strength came the inevitable realization that this sanctuary was temporary. The next, most painful step, the return, was fast approaching. Elias felt a deep, twisting sadness, knowing the ultimate act of love would require him to let go. He had formed an emotional tether with a creature who had only ever asked one thing of him: a chance at life for Leo. It was a sacrifice, a patience, and a trust that what he was doing was preparing him to brave the world outside. He looked at Leo, sleeping soundly beneath his shirt, and whispered to himself, "You are a lion, Leo. You belong to the grass, where your mother is waiting." However heavy his heart, Elias knew he had to honor the silent promise given to Nala under the scorching Kruger sun. It was time to begin preparing for the reintroduction. The day of the return was an emotional burden. Elias drove his old pickup truck, carrying Leo back to the area where he had been found, a familiar hunting ground in the bright late afternoon light. It was the only time Nala's pride could be reliably located. Elias felt his chest tighten. He didn't fear the danger from the pride. He feared the breakage of trust. He released Leo near a cluster of dry acacia trees. The cub, now stronger, a brilliant white against the golden landscape, took tentative steps. Elias stood, watching from a distance, steeling himself for any aggression from pride. He was ready to intervene if necessary to protect the albino cub, knowing it might be in vain. But what he witnessed was worse than violence. It was cold, calculated indifference. The massive, dominant male, the one Nala had originally feared, didn't even lift his head. The other lionesses continued their grooming and resting routines, treating Leo as if he were misplaced stone or an insignificant shadow in the sun. The primal fear of anomaly, the deeply ingrained survival mechanism, was a solid brick wall. There was no acknowledgement, no curiosity. Leo, who was only familiar with the warmth and focused attention of Elias's home, was instantly lost. His bright coat, which was his danger, now starkly highlighted his tragic isolation. Then Nala moved. She ignored the silent, disapproving judgment of her family and closed the distance with powerful, decisive strides. She wasn't hunting, she was fetching. She engulfed Leo in a fiercely protective embrace, licking his head, anchoring him with her massive body. Leo let out a series of happy, relieved chirps. The familiar language of a child returned to safety. But the reunion was bittersweet. Nala's love was a fortress, but the pride remained outside that wall. The lesson was brutal. A mother's love is unconditional, but acceptance in the wild must be earned. Elias drove away that evening, his heart heavy, knowing that the ultimate victory was not his. He had left the cub, but he had not abandoned the fight. He could only hope that Nala's steadfast presence could indeed change nature's immutable law. Could love, he wondered, become a new rule strong enough to reshape a pride? All he could do was wait and trust in the precious gift Nala had given him, belief. For several anxious days, Elias returned to observe from a hidden vantage point. Leo was physically safe within Nala's protective circle, but emotionally lost, always on the fringes. His isolation was marked by solitary meal times and distant naps. Nala remained his impenetrable fortress, but Leo's solitude was palpable, a bright white spot that was not allowed to blend into the darker, camouflage forms. Until one brilliant afternoon, the scene was subtly, yet profoundly, different. Nala was still diligently grooming Leo's pristine white coat, an act that was both love and a statement. But this time, two other lionesses were lying close by. They were not participating, but they were no longer indifferent. They were tolerating. And then, the dominant male, Mufasa, made the final, quiet concession. He chose to rest only a few feet away, his face turned outward, a dark, protective silhouette guarding the fragile white center. The distance was completely gone. The pride had silently, finally, accepted the difference. This was not a sudden, Hollywood-style change. This was a slow, faithful process, driven by Nala's absolute refusal to let go. Her constant presence, her enduring love, had ultimately proven stronger than the ancient fear of difference. Leo, the albino cub who was once destined for death, had become an unexpected catalyst, forcing the pride to evolve, to choose unity over uniformity. Elias watched from his discreet position, the hot African wind stinging his weathered eyes. He had witnessed something extraordinary that day. The emotional depth of these magnificent creatures, proving that life's greatest obstacle is not our difference, but the fear of it. His work was done. As the sun began its slow descent, Elias rose. He walked slowly toward his truck. Nala, as if sensing the end of his mission, lifted her head and caught his eye across the dusty field. It was a brief, powerful moment of communication, a deep, silent acknowledgement between two creatures who had together overcome the adversity of nature. Then Elias drove away, leaving Leo where he had always belonged, safe, loved, and fully embraced by his family. The story of Leo, Nala, and Elias reminds us of a powerful truth. What we initially see as a fatal flaw can become our greatest strength. Each of us carries a white cub, a difference, a vulnerability, a fear that makes us stand out. Do we hide it, or do we stand by it as Nala did? We believe connection and compassion are the greatest forces in the world. If this story has touched you, if you believe in the power of unyielding love, please hit the subscribe button now and join our community that celebrates hope and gentle solutions. Share with us in the comments. What impossible choice have you made recently that resulted in the victory of your heart? We would love to read your story.